This is the Western Conference pod. Do we trust me to start us off on this one? Is the real question.
Absolutely not. So we're starting with the Dallas Mavericks. That's the first team alphabetically here. And we're starting off with a hard one, I think, because the pecking order for the Mavericks is like pretty defined at this point because it's Luka Doncic at number 1, it's Luka Doncic at number 2, and it's Luka Doncic at number 3, and then maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. at 4. So like you have to think about Kristaps Porzingis here because of the upside, a new coach, but then you remember that new coach is Jason Kidd, and you're like, no, that probably won't happen. And beyond that, like I'm personally just not that sold on Josh Green yet. I get it if he's the choice, but that basically led me to Dorian Finney-Smith, who is an older breakout candidate, which is where I should say that we did tend to steer younger with these selections. We didn't pick any rookies. We tried to steer clear of the very obvious ones. Like for me, Anthony Edwards, we expect a big leap, but that was not my pick for the Timberwolves, and no All-Stars as well. If they made an all-star team in the recent past, yes, they could continue to improve, but it's not really feeling like a breakout. So I don't think Finney-Smith is going to be an all-star or a top-end starter or anything like that, but just the ability that he has with defensive length and versatility is something that Jason Kidd has historically prioritized in his previous coaching roles. So I think he's going to just be involved a little bit more in the schemes. He also looked a little bit more comfortable attacking closeouts, creating for himself, getting to the rim a little bit more. He's been a consistent three-point shooter, still has room to improve from the corners where I think he was around like 36% this previous season. So even if these skills haven't translated into a star player, just the importance of his role and his ability to contribute in so many areas as this Mavericks team continues to get better, I think we're going to just see a changing in a positive direction reputation for him, where he's no longer just this under the radar gem so much as an established, valuable player.
I don't have any response. Like I won't argue with that point. I went a different route, and I actually am calling it audible midstream. And I'm going with Sterling Brown because he had kind of a breakout year last year that I don't think people realized how good he was doing. And really quickly, I think you could mention Jalen Brunson here. Is there sort of an augmentation of his off the dribble game? I view him as someone who could put pressure on defenses, but will he ever have I don't want to call him a second option, but just like quintessential sixth man who can run his own lineups because he's hitting a ton of off the dribble jumpers. Jalen Brunson's really good. It wouldn't surprise me if he got a lot better. But I'm looking at this team and trying to find like a potential swings piece. And I thought it was Josh Green for me, just a wing who can really do functionally so much. We haven't seen a ton of it, obviously, at the NBA level. I'm going to go with Sterling Brown, though, because of his usage last year in Houston. He shot over 40% on threes. He defended a bunch of different positions for them. And the other thing they had him do, which I don't necessarily expect Dallas to try, but they were running him at point guard. And he was doing okay. And so is that the guy? No, I don't think we look back on this season and say Sterling Brown is Dallas' second best player. But I think there's been, a ton of criticism about the Dallas Mavericks offseason. On the Jason Kidd front, I'll listen to it and I'll agree with it for the most part. I don't think he's the coach to elevate players that you're looking for growth from. And he also doesn't really seem like that good of a human being. Aside from that, though, I know fans, and I've talked to Dallas Mavericks fans, they've been in my mentions, they were disappointed about this offseason. I want to make a joke about them being the king of almost, but this wasn't the offseason to do anything. It was Kyle Lowry, and that was it. That ended up just being the prize. Like, getting Larry Markkinen wouldn't have been a huge prize for me. You have Kristaps Porzingis, another big white dude who can't dribble and will space the floor for you. So getting Reggie Bullock, getting Sterling Brown, keeping Tim Hardaway Jr., kind of pricey, but he really didn't get that much of a raise off of his previous deal. I think they had a solid offseason within the confines of reality because I don't think they were ever going to get any of these big wig free agents because there were so few that were actually going to leave. Sterling Brown, to me, is one of those guys that we could look back on. And if I told you next season, Luka Doncic, wherever Kristaps Porzingis is, Tim Hardaway Jr., Maxi Kleber, but Sterling Brown is their fifth or sixth best player. Would that floor you? Would that floor you?
It would surprise me. It probably wouldn't floor me just because I don't agree with Jalen Brunson as a breakout pick because I think he's the quintessential high floor, low ceiling player. But because that floor is so high, I would have a tough time seeing him surpassed. And I do think Finney-Smith's importance is enough that it would be tough to leapfrog him in that pecking order as well. But if you're saying that Sterling Brown is on the same tier as those two guys and has elevated the ceiling of this Mavericks team, I'm totally behind that.
What I would say then, this might be a better way to frame it, is I'm not, when you're sort of looking at the perimeter rotation, and we'll throw Doncic into this, you have Hardaway, you have Finney-Smith, and then you have Doncic. I don't know who I would definitively put in front of Sterling Brown to round out that perimeter rotation. Maybe it's Reggie Bullock, maybe it's Jalen Brunson. I'm definitely putting Sterling Brown on the floor before Josh Green or Tyrell Terry at this point. And so I think I think the opportunity will be there because he should be, in my opinion, like no worse than the 8th in minutes per game when you look at the rest of this roster.
Totally behind that. I also just want to add that I think, and no disrespect to Mavericks fans here who are a very passionate bunch, but I think that Mavericks fans being disappointed in a Mavericks offseason is a little bit like the pre-2020 Cleveland Browns fans being disappointed in another losing season. It's like, yeah, you can be disappointed, but like, no shit, we knew that was going to happen.
It's a rite of summer to be disappointed in the Mavs offseason. I just don't think it. I wasn't disappointed. I would have liked to have seen them gone in a different direction with the head coach. But when you look at the on-court stuff they did, unless you thought that they could have moved Kristaps Porzingis for anyone, and that might be, I said this as a joke, and people caught onto it on Twitter and something that I wrote. Their biggest, most important addition might be Kristaps Porzingis offseason workouts. I don't know when that dude has had like a relatively healthy offseason in the past.
That's fair.
I don't think he's going to break out though. I think there's a clear cap to me on his game offensively. But
their biggest addition though is making sure that Boban Marjanovic is still there.